That was This Common House by Fold. This is Life is People. And tonight we have Fold in the house. Pick up the Fold!
Hey!
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Life is People. I'd like to say good evening and afternoon, depending what time of the world we are, to my true friend and great amigo, Ryan. How are we doing tonight, Ryan?
I'm doing great, Tim. I'm doing great. Yeah, it's all about 2 in the afternoon here.
Perfect. And Rich, how you doing, Rich?
I'm doing fine. How y'all doing?
We're doing great, man. We're doing great. And boys from Fold. Hello, boys.
Hello, hello.
Introduce yourself to everybody.
Hello, I'm Ben, and I play bass.
Josh, I play guitar and do live visuals.
So we started this tonight with This Common House from the Fold, which is a tune that I've only just been turned on to in the last few sort of weeks. I think it's one of the great things about music. It's one of the great things I love about the essence of what we're all here together about, is that the idea that you can hear something new and you're like, wow, and it kind of sets off whole thought processes and stuff in your head. And I was talking to Seth how I like to paint and I like to draw and I like to listen to tunes, and I was telling the boys that I've been listening to Salvation LP on a loop and painting like crazy for the last 2 weeks. Now, I would, for people who aren't aware, and maybe people who are, but I would just tell us more about the Salvation album, LP. How did it come about? Because people might be aware of the compilation stuff. It's free to talk about the album, please, lads.
Yeah, sure. We've had a lot of Mr. G stuff sort of floating around for a while. Mr. G's the poet that we've sampled and used on the tracks, and he's a London-based poet. He had a slot on BBC Radio 4. He did Rhyme and Reason over there, and he's an old friend of Seth's. And like I said, we've had a lot of tunes kicking about for a while, some of which are in our live set, some of which aren't. And we thought it would be kind of nice to have those all in one place. And sort of part of a bit of an EP, just with a sort of a unified theme, unified speaker throughout. So that's kind of how that was born.
So the tunes that are in it, were they taken from a larger poem he'd written, or were they actually just particularly for every tune?
I think he'd written that especially for Seth. I think Seth had contacted him and said, "Listen, can you write some poems for my tunes?" And he recorded them in a recording studio and sent them over to Seth, and then obviously Seth's polished them up and put music over them. So quite interesting. We've not yet had the pleasure of meeting the chap, but I think one of the sort of the future hopes and sort of dreams to do a gig with him, like a live gig with him, actually doing like live poetry over live music, which would be quite good, I think.
I think that I think that would be extremely cool. Like, so when he did this, did anybody sort of like, was there collaboration on the idea as to what the song was about, or was it like you said, did he just send Mr. G a track and then Mr. G just kind of go over it and make it up as, you know, what he felt?
I think Mr. G is kind of quite infamous for as a sort of a human rights activist, a humanitarian. So a lot of his poems are kind of based around sort of equality and equal rights, which obviously Fold sort of have a lot of the same sort of ethos. So already before we'd contacted him and asked him to put some stuff together for us, like the match was already there, the fit was already there, so it worked really well. The actual collaboration between Fold and Mr. G was before Seth put the live band together behind it. So it's difficult to tell you like the full story behind that without him to sort of to fill in the blanks really in the gaps.
Fair enough.
I mean, because it's not only from Salvation as well, but another tune I've been loving as well is "Be Water, My Friend," which is from one of my old school heroes, old Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
So that again, I mean, who chose to do that as a sample? And how did that start life?
Well, we have a benevolent dictator, which is the man himself, Seth. He's the boss man. We do as we're told. But he's the main ideas man behind a lot of the sort of the themes behind the tracks and the speeches that he puts together. And like previously from previous gigs, we got a lot of flack for being a little bit worthy. We don't want to come across as kind of having these big sort of lectures that we want to put across to music. So the Bruce Lee one was quite a nice sort of philosophical sort of take, and obviously with him being such a famous sort of character, it was somebody that it's easy for people to identify with. So again, Seth was the main instigator behind that, but it was nice to have him on a track.
It was, to be honest, it was one of the first tracks where instead of just using a full speech and just layering, you know, just popping the speech down against music, it was one where we'd actually chopped the speech up and we used it in such a way where we try and create like a hook, you know, elements within the track where you can use that in a chorus and it becomes a bit catchy and people will remember that sort of those phrases where ones before would just take the whole speech and just put them down and just played music over it as sort of a backing track, essentially.
So were you two boys fans of Bruce Lee previously? I mean,
Yeah,
massive. So when he brought that down to practice and we played it, like it was just absolutely fell in love with it straight away, which, you know, always helps when you're writing a track, doesn't it? Like.
So what's your favourite Bruce Lee film then?
Enter the Dragon, definitely.
Oh, I was going to say that one.
Have you all seen that video with Bruce Lee playing ping pong with the nunchucks against two professional ping pong players?
Yeah,
that's intense. I still wonder. It's like what's going on there?
Incredible.
You seen the film that recently came out like last year or year before? Like This Is Bruce Lee or something, and it basically it tells you his life of when he was a youngster and he became like a young famous actor in his homeland, and then he got sent off to America to obviously do some more acting over there by his parents, and then this is where he became sort of famous for his karate and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if did anybody ever see Dragon, the Bruce Lee biopic that came out in the U.S. in like the early '90s, and his son Jason Lee actually played him. I don't know if anybody saw that one. That
Oh,
was
I haven't seen that.
yeah. For some reason, that was always one growing up that I watched over and over, and just the way they played out, his demons and his nightmares and like the whole thing that he was going through. And actually, I actually just made this song and just posted it the other day, and it originally was called Bruce Lee's Nightmares and Dreams, and because it was just this, yeah, the whole vision of Bruce Lee and what he was going through and what he eventually came to do and inspire inside of people. I mean, yeah, just as one individual is really amazing. And then hearing your guys' song with his one of his amazing speeches inside of it, the whole "Be Like Water," it was phenomenal. I mean, and you could hear the influence and the inspiration, and that it's not just something you come across and you're like, oh, this sounds cool, let's put this on there. Like, you could really tell that you put the work into it, and you felt the message behind it, and you really just tried to get that across, whether it was like you said, like it becomes catchy as a hook or whatever, but those are techniques that it takes time of making music to build and think about those things and do whatever. And yeah, the way you guys did that with that sample was just amazing. Really, really great song.
Yeah, cheers, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's always been a bit of a balancing act for us, because obviously each song's got a story behind it. We want to put across a message, but at the same time we still want to write good music that's popular with people. We want people to enjoy the songs that we put out. So it's that delicate balancing act of kind of trying to find a happy medium between the message we want to put across and the music that we want to write as well. So to date, I think that's been the most successful sort of balance between the two.
Well, I mean, you're taking what I love about when I first initially heard you boys. I love the fact I kind of love the fact that you mixed the spoken word and music. Now, I sent the link. I don't know whether Seth sent it across to you.
Yeah, really good point that you brought that up.
I mean, there's one of my favourite my albums when I grew up with. It kind of shaped my whole thinking about a lot of things. Was an album called Sounds of Dissent, and it was basically done in 1971, 70, even 70, I think. But what they've done is sampled all the tracks. Voice tracks, radio tracks, there's interviews and stuff. All the kind of stuff that was going on in America in the late '60s. The riots and the peace campaign and the draft and the the whole equal rights stuff, the feminists and stuff. And he's put that on the back of a bass player. And I remember it shaping my life so much was the power of spoken word. Because some of the greatest things in life have ever been shaped how we are now. I have a dream. I mean, how much does that shape the world? And then to put the two together to music. Now, it's not something I really heard. I mean, it crept up with a bit of the trip hop thing that from in the 90s. But to hear it again with you boys doing it, it was such a fascinating kind of creative element. I mean, is it something you find? Obviously you find it very inspiring and stuff like that. I mean, is it something you want to continue exploring, or do you find it has limitations?
I think it's got its limitations. I think some people can find it quite boring, especially when you're doing it, when you're trying to portray it live, and you haven't got like a front man, you haven't got a centerpiece to your performance. I think people can find it quite boring and just quite, again, like preachy. And I think going forward, trying to experiment with different vocal samples in a different way, instead of just laying it down as a full sample, actually breaking it up and creating a song out of the tracks rhythmically and melodically as well. And I think that's the hardest thing, especially for Seth as well. Obviously can't speak for him, but I know that's some of the concerns and the issues that we've come across, is like how we're gonna lay that down.
Because I mean, like if you were saying before, like you'd lay tracks down and then like when Mr. G came on, he would write over them. Now that's a kind of technique that I always used to do in a band. We always used to do I would write something and go to the band and say to them, look, put what you want, put the tunes around it in my big ego way. but what I'm trying to say was with you doing it that way round, I mean, so what kind of, when you two are jamming, do you always sort of have to jam when you're laying down tunes? Do you always sort of think, okay, we'll do this bearing in mind someone's got to speak over, or do you just go, no, and then that's what it is, and then we'll find things to fit? How does that process work?
Yeah, this is another. Yeah, go on, Josh.
Well, the way that's been working recently, we've been spending a lot of time sort of writing stuff at the moment, and without mentioning any brands, we record stuff on a phone. You'd be surprised how well like the audio comes out. We were surprised how well it comes out. So what we tend to do is like Seth will come down and he'll have a bit of a sketch. So like he might have a beat or a few sort of horn samples or a little bit of something, and it usually sparks an idea in us, and we'll spend the next sort of hours or subsequent hours just jamming and recording that on phones. And what tends to happen is Seth will take that away, and he'll try and sort of he'll have something in mind that he wants to put over the top of that, or the song will naturally sort of evolve and lead in a certain direction that inspire him to work towards a certain theme or a certain speech. But on the flip side, it has happened completely the other way around as well, where he'll come down with a speech and a message that he particularly wants to put across, and we will sort of retrofit music to that. So we've taken both approaches and experimented, and I think what's working well for us at the moment is the just sort of having an initial sketch and just running with it, just letting it sort of take its natural course, and whatever sort of happens sort of thing. We'll come back to that. We'll refine it, but that's the way that's worked for us, sort of writing songs at the moment, and that's the way that we're continuing to do it. Because a lot of the songs that we have previously put together have been sort of retrofit from tracks that Seth's had in his back catalogue. So we're kind of always recycling and reusing, and we do take speeches that we've previously used in tracks that we maybe put over a completely new track and decides, an unreleased track, sorry. So things are constantly evolving and changing, and it's a massive sort of experiment, and it's great fun doing it.
So you just mentioned just before there, Han, that when you go to do that live, is that, I mean, from a perspective of someone who's been in a band before, when I've looked at a crowd, I've always known there's been a frontman like leading it. So what kind of reactions does the crowd have? Because they've obviously got the music going on, they're obviously into the vibe of what's going on. Do you find they actually find that disconcerting, not having a frontman there? Is that something that people find hard, hearing words and not having someone speaking?
It's been strange. To be honest, the most difficult thing that we've had is there's a massively prevalent indie sort of rock scene. So it's quite easy when approaching promoters and trying to get booked for gigs that you get lumped in with that sort of stuff. So we're immediately kind of faced with people not quite sure what to make of this kind of like chilled out, down tempo sort of trip hop stuff next to your indie or your rock sort of band. But we've evolved the live stuff. We did get a lot of mixed reactions. A lot of it was kind of like, wow, that's really different. It's great. I love it. It's something with a completely different spin. But you would obviously naturally get the kind of like people that couldn't relate to the fact that there wasn't a front man, there wasn't a singer, and the rest of it. To kind of combat that, we play to live visuals. So we have sort of like live visuals that we've put together as Ben's done most of them actually, and we take our own projectors and screens to gig and have sort of like the huge visual element as well, because we were concerned about not having that kind of main focus on stage, and I think that's massively improved that, and we've had a lot of great feedback on that.
So that, because this is one of the things that this has crept up in quite a few sort of episodes that we've had of this, is that creative people tend to not just be, people from the outside think, if you're a musician, that's all you do, but you don't. The creative element tries to dip into anything that's put in its way, anything. So I mean, so you're just saying then, like, so Ben, did you say like you do the visuals? So is that you do that from what, recording visuals you make yourself? I mean, tell me about that process.
Well, a lot of it does come from stuff that I find on the internet, like royalty-free videos and stuff that just chop up. But with that kind of stuff, each track has a message, you know, something that we want to put across. So a lot of the visuals try and capture that message, and you know, it's been quite difficult to try and not reuse a lot of the images across all the videos, because it would be quite easy just to do that. But to come across like new images and new, you know, clips and things that we can try and experiment with has been quite difficult. But the stuff that we have come out with, we've had a good response from people who've come to see us and say that the music fits the images, and the images fit the music. We've had kind of that response from quite a lot of people.
So it's a huge compliment. You mentioned earlier that like you like to do a lot of sort of painting and drawing to music, and the visual aspect that we've done live. I think it's almost a similar sort of scenario where it's almost a kind of like close your eyes and what can you see that's going to fit, you know. It's difficult to not be too obvious with the imagery, but also you don't want to be too vague and too sort of too out there.
You don't want to spell it out for people. You want people to use the brains and walk away from it and have different perspectives on what the images can portray and mean, and not having that one message just handed to people on a silver plate, if you can know what I mean.
No, I understand exactly what you mean. I think this is part of when we tapped into this in the last edition, that what you just said then is the element of you want people to experience the same things when you're creating it. When you're creating it, you're dipping into an element of the greater consciousness that we said before. But yeah, you want the audience to do that because you want them to spark that almost the electrical pulses in their mind and going, oh, okay, spark that generation in your own head. Surely that's kind of what we as creators are always trying to make people think. We're trying to get them to go, don't just like what I say or like what I do because I do it, but I want you to think. I want you to spark something inside your head, like you were just saying, Ben.
It's to be honest, it's one of my favourite things. You know, when you've gone to see like a really good film, and you've gone with a lot of mates, and you come out and it just sparks off a debate about I think the ending means this, no, I think the ending means that. But it doesn't become an aggressive argument. It becomes more of people's just imaginations and sort of things, emotions, and it's quite interesting. I quite like seeing people's responses from it and reactions from it.
Now, Ben, you were saying about getting footage, and I had brought up this website to Rich on a previous podcast, and I don't know if you had been to it, but I actually used a bunch of the footage, and I've seen tons of people using the footage from it, but it's called the Prelinger Archives.
Oh, right, okay.
And it's basically this guy is cataloging and collecting all this public domain, black and white, like old instructional videos, industrial videos, and I mean, I can't even tell you, like, the list goes on because there's literally thousands of them. But I mean, if you're looking for like free visuals, I used them in my movie. I've seen a video artist here in the States named Walter Gross. I've seen him use them and in fantastical manners, and I think there's so much to be done with it because they have so many videos. But yeah, it's called the Prelinger Archives, and if you just Google that, I'm sure that'll pop up, and you can go through pages and pages and pages and just download all this free content of old videos and old black and white footage, and a lot of it's quite amazing. I think there's a lot to be done with it still.
Oh, because when I'm trying to find it, there's so much stuff out there that you find, and you thought that's perfect, but then there's a big dirty watermark through it, and you're like, I just can't use that.
Yeah, I mean, the Prelinger Archives is just so vast, and they have footage from, I think they have one video that's just a straight shot of somebody driving in a car down the road in like 1913. And it's just one shot of them, and all you see is, I think it was like probably a good 4 minutes long, of just somebody from that time period driving down the road. And like you go, like you said, you know, finding the footage and whatever. Like, I mean, there's so much on there. You know, if you're really into it, you're gonna be going through all of it and just
Yeah,
kind of like, oh man, there's so much of it. But then you're gonna find like, I can't even tell you how many gigabytes worth of clips that I just found, and even ones that I didn't use that I just had saved because I was like, these are, you know, I think these are really cool shots, really cool clips. If I could do something with them, you know, love to do it. And yeah, I think the Prelinger archives is just something that anybody who's looking for any sort of visuals, if you've got the time to go through it all, sit there and watch all of it. I mean, there's a
I've got so much time on my hands, to be honest, mate. So.
yeah, that's how it is for us.
Well, it's really funny because you know the old joke about you meet people and they go, oh, you artists, you people like that, do you know what I mean? And they get really kind of, you know, ratchety at us, they get kind of grumpy with us and go, ugh. Do you know, and it's always the element I turn around and say, do you know why you're like that? Because you're jealous of us being free. And that is the element, we are, because we're the people in society, in life, who have got the ability to do this, we've got the time on our hands, and we can do that. And no wonder it pushes against a lot of people. They're like, whoa, because they know, ultimately, that what they're stuck in their mundane lives. It's what we do as an element of creative people. We try to shake them up and say, do you know what? All you've got to do is to step out of your life. Yeah. If you've all got there's no inherent geniuses. We're all just tapping into creative. The bigger thing, aren't we? You know what I mean? And that's what I can't stand when I hear musicians go, "Oh, well, I'm so special," or you know, an artist, yeah. And oh no, it's bollocks, man. We're just tapping into what Ryan would put in his film, the greater mind. That's all we're tapping into. That's what I feel.
No, yeah, definitely agree. I think a lot of it's born from just being passionate about something as well. You know. For me, I'm passionate about music, so I mean, I make the time to try and put stuff together, to write stuff. I do it for my own personal enjoyment as well. You know, it's just, I think a lot of it is just born out of passion.
Yeah, but even, well, I would say even, you know, even if we do it out of enjoyment, it's not like, you know, one of the hardest things for me to do was ever like something sort of fun or something that was just like fun oriented and just like, you know, like a Happy Days, like, you know, just something that was, you know, something like that. Like I've never been able to do anything like that. You know, I've got too much on my mind. I've got too much to say, and you know, I kind of almost disagree with Tim in the fact of, you know, that we have the time. I think everybody has the time, and I think people who think they don't have the time are really just fooling themselves. I mean, I don't have, I'm one of the few people in America, like, I don't even have cable. I don't plug my TV into the cable. I don't turn the TV on and just watch something. Like, you know, that's just not me. Like, I can't just shut off like that and get into mundane over and over, you know, the same thing, get into, you know, pseudo drama that lasts, you know, a season, 2 seasons, whatever, you know. I can't shut on, shut off like that. Like, I'm a very instantaneous, gotta go, gotta get it done, you know, find those samples, get this music, do this, write this, do this, get this done. And I mean, I think everybody has the time, but as soon as, you know, like Tim had just posted the quote about Bill Hicks saying that turning on the TV is like putting tape over your third eye. Like, you know, and I think a lot of people, like, you know, you can sit there for 40 minutes and watch, you know, a quote-unquote hour-long TV show that's actually only 40 minutes long. And how much are you gaining from that 40 minutes? How much are you coming out of that 40 minutes? Compared to what I'd be doing if I wasn't watching that show? Like, nothing. Because 40 minutes of my life, like, boom, I can be changing lives. I could be changing my reality. I could be, you know, reading, just, you know, getting my mind blown constantly by searching for something new. Or I can just, you know, shut off, watch that 40 minutes. But I think everybody's capable. Everybody has, it's not just special people. And I think, you know, like I was saying to the Ceiling Demons, people like us, people like Fold, you know, we're so unique in the way we work and what we do that we don't need to be jealous of other people. We don't need to be jealous of artists and, you know, how they're able to communicate, because we find it in ourselves and we go out there and we just keep doing it, and we almost can't shut it off. You do it for that enjoyment, you do it for that love and that passion that you were talking about earlier.
Definitely. I totally agree with that, Ryan. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, the point I was making about time wasn't the fact that people haven't got the time. It's the fact of there are some people who are, time constrained. They've got kids and stuff like that. But generally, it's like you say, it's what people do with their time, and that's what I'm trying to. The point I was trying to make was that people are very good. That's why I put that tweet out. People are very good at distracting.
Oh no, I mean I totally agree with that too. And even somebody who's if somebody's raising a kid, like I can think of few songs or music or movies in general where something as powerful as raising a child. I mean, there's few things as powerful as something like that, and that's one of those things that I don't know, I haven't really seen like a whole lot of artistic what have you go into it. I haven't seen anything like really move me in that direction, but even then, like, yeah, I think there's spending time with that child, I think there's so much artistic integrity just built off of that alone, just so much growing off of staring at that.
And he disappeared. Oh, it's right.
Good. No, I think what it comes down to is it's not how much time people have, because like you said, everybody's got time. It's patience, because good art, good music,
That yeah. Oh yeah.
It takes time. You try and rush it. At the end of it, you're going to sit there and you think, I wish I spent more time on that. And I think that's what people do. They do it for 10 or 15 minutes and they expect something just to present itself, as magic. It's not that. It's not the case most times. It takes a lot of work, hard work and effort.
But that's because we live in a society or a culture that's basically just fixated with the short-term gain. And then when you do something with what we all do together, we know it's not for, like you just said, it's not for the 15 minutes. You have to put the effort in. It's like life. It's almost one of the biggest illusions that's been sold to us, is that you can just magically make things happen. No, man, life is about putting the effort and the time in. You don't just pick up a bass up guitar one day and go, I can do the whole of like play like Flea out of Red Hot Chili Peppers. No, it takes time, man. And that's the trouble is, we live in a culture wherever you are in the world. That's not the meme or the thought process going around. It's everything short term. Whether it's a politician that thinks I'll do things in 4 years down the line, kick it into touch, or whether it's just us as people, like you even just said, even just down to I can't be asked to spend more than 15 minutes to do something.
Yeah, there's two ends of the spectrum, though. There's people that would just pick up a guitar or a bass guitar or pick up the sticks for a drum kit, play for 15 minutes and think, this is too hard, and put it down. Well, you got the people who sit there for 8, 9, 10 hours a day, will just play constantly and think that they're God's gift to this planet because they play amazingly, and their heads just get bigger and bigger. Where, I, as a bass player, I confess that I'm not the most technical bass player. I look at the fundamentals of a bass player and look at what that actually is. Like, it's the root and it's the backing of a band. If you have a decent, solid bass player and a decent, solid drummer, then you've got the foundations for a good band. Obviously, like guitarists and stuff.
Ben Walsh, ladies and gentlemen, the honest man in music.
Yeah, it's not often I get to have, I get to voice my own opinion about bass players and stuff like that.
The thing is he can't play bass to save his life. He's rubbish.
Mate, me and you, Ben, are going to stick together forever, mate. I was a bass player, mate. They don't know what they're talking about. They just think
I'm kidding. I love Ben. He's. I take it back.
No. You see where I'm coming from, though. You can play a song and you might not. Someone might go, "Oh, you didn't do much in that song there," but you're like, "Well, did it need? It needed that for it to be a good song." And I think that's what, as a band, especially me and Josh and Kane, the songs that we do play, we don't play a lot of technical stuff. We do try and put some elements in there that are a bit fun, a bit different.
It's more about
yeah. We put elements into the song which create the song.
That's very well put. I mean, too many bands have that idea of everyone. People have their position in the band, and this guy's gonna play the solo, this guy's gonna do this guy's gonna do that. And yeah, I mean, in that position you have to be malleable. You have to if it calls for a simple play, then play it simple. Like that's how you have to do it. Very well said though.
Yeah.
One of the greatest things I ever learned in my experience with playing is the greatest thing that you can do is know when not to play, which sounds simple enough in itself, but exactly like you were just saying, there's too many people that just think I have to play for the entire 4 minutes of that song or that, it's knowing when it's not needed. It adds so much more to the music, I think, when when you can kind of have that restraint, and yeah.
It's exactly the same. Go on.
Sorry, Tim. No, after you.
No, I was just going to say, I've shared that exactly the same experience with painting. The amount of paintings that I've done, and I've lost the image I want, and it ends up as being a brown mess. And it's knowing when to stop is one of the most crucial lessons you learn in any element. Sorry, I was just wanting to tap in with that.
No, definitely. No, completely agree with that. So what you'll find with most of our tracks is space is like gold. When we've got a bit and Josh might do a little twiddly bit on the guitar, or I'll do something on the bass, and you think actually that needed that space there is just gold, and just with a beat behind it.
Well, I was saying last week that I was watching some stuff last week on YouTube, and it had like Jimmy Smith, and they were playing this blues jazz stuff, and there was a part of the whole gig where he just stopped the whole band, and they just stood there for a minute and just looked around at everybody. And it was like, yeah, do you know what? Silence sometimes is one of the most powerful things, especially when it's in music. I think that element is it's an interesting element that people don't. It's great to talk about, because it's the slowing down. I found this with music. Sometimes the slowing down of things can have so much power. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there was that musician. I can't remember his name. It was like John Kane or something, where he was like a pianist, and he literally made a song of 4 minutes of silence. That was it. 4 minutes of silence. And it was just like how pretentious, but how powerful is that? Just 4 minutes of silence. Like each person would be able to create that. I don't even know how to explain it. It's
well, how many people could actually be able to take his name away from it and just be like 4 minutes of silence? Can you sit in 4 minutes of silence?
Yeah.
How many people nowadays can do that and not break down and just be like, "Ow, what the?"
No, definitely.
Man, silence is like it's I don't know, it's like a faraway object. It's something so far out that it's very hard to 4 minute silence anywhere. So for somebody to put that on headphones and say, you know what, here's 4 minutes of silence, enjoy it, because you're not getting it anywhere else.
No, definitely.
That'd be the highlight of my day, man.
It's true though, isn't it? Because it's one of the things, especially when you live in a city, you never get to hear. I mean, I used to live in Leeds city centre. Man, I never used to hear silence. It was never ever quiet. Even at 4 o'clock in the morning, still people walking around. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah, but you can get a bagel at 4:30 in the morning. So
you really can, yeah.
It's all about the 4 a.m. bagels, man.
Actually, it's not bagels in Leeds. It's they all just seem to gather around McDonald's and get.
Mate, when I lived in Headingley back in the day, there was a little local kind of news agent, and they used to do 24-hour delivery runs for Rizzler packets and stuff. he had to close it down there because he was just run off his feet. He thought it would be a few local people, but he had imagine all the students in Headingley. Maybe they heard about that one. Poor guy was just like.
I'm surprised he's not a multi-millionaire by now, around loads of them.
Yeah, yeah, that's what we said to him. Do you know what I mean? But do you know what I mean? I think the thing was he was kind of one of those guys who, you know, we all meet in life. We're like, no, I'm not sharing this with anybody. I'll do it all myself. And he was ending up on his little moped, like, you know, literally 24 hours a day, just running around all the service needs, all the students all waking up at certain times. You know, it's like you're never going to stop, man. You're like a hamster on a wheel.
Yeah, crazy, man. We had a guy in Halifax, where I'm from, that did exactly the same thing. He had a little white transit van, used to drive around and deliver alcohol, Rizzlers, the rest of it at any time of night. And my logic and lasting thought on that is, if I'm 4 a.m. in the morning thinking, I need some Rizzlers, I need to think, man, I should be in bed, I need to be asleep, you know. What am I doing? I'm having to ring up to have Rizzlers delivered.
Rizzlers that should cost like 85p but actually cost 6.99 at like
in a good 2-3 minute conversation with the driver because you're that bored.
Yeah.
For Rizzlers.
Yeah, but the trouble is, right, when the driver gets here, he's like, I haven't got time to talk, man. You know, I've got things to do.
Do you see all these fucking Rizzlers I get over? Like, get the fuck out of the car.
You think they can deliver themselves?
But the thing is, it's like, going back to it, you never hear silence, man. I mean, it was like, it's one of the things I think the boys and the demons have. They have the luxury of sitting up in the dales and having a bit of peace and quiet. And it's, I mean, like I told you boys, I lived in Leeds for years, and then coming up to Scotland, it was like, whoa, at night time it's actually quiet. And like, it's very, I think, very so, I don't know, almost kind of, I don't know, almost soothing for the soul, if you want to talk in those kind of terms. You know what I mean? It's kind of washes over you, that silence really makes you clear your mind. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's why you see a lot of Southerners, especially, you know, people down in London and stuff. They'll move further up north because there is, you know, especially where we are now in Halifax. We're at the top of a valley. You know, it's so in regards to sort of like Leeds, Manchester, and all that kind of stuff. So quiet up here. You know, you can just walk straight out into a field and you've just got silence there. You know, you've just got nature there, and it's just like it's. I think we take it for granted that we've got sort of that land and that those views on our doorstep.
Especially if you think of someone like Seth. I mean, imagine coming from New York and the amount of noise. Oh, yeah. I mean, it must do something to I've often thought this. It must do something to the actual mind. If you just 24 hours of the day, all your life, this ambient noise is going.
Yeah.
It must do something to the brain circuit, surely, somewhere deep in the mind.
I'll tell you what.
I think it would say it depends on how you look at it. I mean, out here, like I won't even get silence out in my back door. It'll like at night. It's always like Ben was saying, nature, and I'm hearing like the cicadas and the crickets that are just and it's loud, and if you're not used to it, it's kind of like booming in your ears. But if you're used to it, you just kind of zone it out. You don't hear it, and I kind of always saw cities as being like that. As you could look out over the city, and if you were just in that frame of mind, it could be just as tranquil as anything else, because it is that moment of it's just kind of insects, and it's just the car horns and whatever's going on. You don't really hear conversations, you don't hear the words, but you might hear a muffled something. But I think if you can just, I think it's the mindset. If you can just look at it as the landscape that it is, and not the uber reality that it actually is, I think you can find the peace and tranquility inside of it.
Oh, definitely.
You can do, right, but I'll tell you what, mate, from someone who lived in the city centre, I mean, I know what you mean, because I've lived in the middle of the jungle, and I know what you're saying, is that there's an ambient nature sound, but mate, what you don't get in the middle of the jungle, you don't get at 4 o'clock in the morning some pisshead walking on the street complaining about the price of beer. You don't get that in the jungle, man. That's what I mean. That scrambles your noggin, man, because you're walking out.
No, but that's what I was trying to say. As far as if I don't know, maybe if you're high enough up, if you're enough stories enough in the building, you don't hear the actual conversations. You don't hear what the hell's actually going on, the fights, the arguments, the whatever. It's just kind of its own nature zone when you're that far away. But yeah, when you're on ground level, it's just kind of like, you know, shake your head, roll your eyes, hold yourself like this, just
Right, there's no mistake. This is called N99, mate, because the people who get that pleasure are the 1%, mate. They're the people living at the top of that enjoyment, man. The rest of us are living in the middle lower lands.
I wish Steph was here right now, man. He took a little like recorder out with him and his son, and he recorded that sort of like city background ambience noise, cars going past, horns, seagulls, the rest of it. We've sampled it, reversed it, and it's in a few of our tracks now. That's quite a nice way of taking that one.
Oh, okay.
That's very cool. I'm gonna have to go back and listen for that.
It's in, I think it's in, what is it? Is it in Mr. President?
Mr. President, yeah.
Mr. President, we're in trouble. Listen to that, and it's like sound of like engines and cars driving by and stuff. We just reversed the sound and laid it like underneath the track. It's quite.
Is this thing on?
Boys, go where?
How y'all doing?
What's up?
Little late to the party?
I can hear you, man, but I can't see you.
Oh, you can't hear me?
If you go to the cursor at the top of your screen, you should be able to click on the little video icon if you want everybody to see.
It says it's on.
It was just like having God boom out from the corner.
Can you hear me?
It blacked you a couple of times when you first logged on, and then it...
Wait a minute. Even in the future, nothing works.
Exactly.
Man, at least you're making an entrance.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm in spirit, I'm in sound. No.
How you doing, sir?
It's telling me the camera's on.
Yeah, hang on, you coming?
Oh.
No.
Toggling back and forth of a picture of you and a picture of your camera icon.
Yeah.
Camera Illuminati eye.
That's me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's watching me.
See, we were just talking about the 1% and nothing, and then in he comes.
Yeah, and then the big blue glowing eye shows up.
Yeah.
He's like, "Hey, what are you guys talking about? You talking about me? Bombs? You talking about bombs?"
Mate, do you know, the thing is, what you were just saying there, it's kind of like, when it breaks down to, if you sort of think about it, I've thought about this week, that maybe sound is just a distant form of touch. Do you know what I mean? If you think about it really, because what you're doing, like you play the bass note or the piano, you know, you're putting that, and that's vibrating across the room, into your earlobes, go through the whole process into your brain. So really you are just hearing what someone's touched, but delayed by time, aren't you? So that's what I'm sort of saying. When you're in nature, and like I say, you kind of feel like, okay, I'm in touch with what I've come from. That's what I was trying to say about cities. But the noise and the sound you're hearing is that almost unnatural vibe. Man, I worked in a hotel, and the underlying electrical sound of and, you know, it's that kind of sound I'm talking about more than the nature sounds.
No, definitely. Yeah. Like Ryan said though, if that's where you sort of brought, if you're brought up within an environment that's got those sounds and stuff, it just becomes second nature to what it's easier to drown it out. Like,
a perfect example of that is perfect. I mean, when I went to Argentina, I had a son at the time. He was 6 years old, and he picked up Spanish within 3 or 4 weeks, and it took me years. Because he was such a young mind, he picked up the environment and all that. It was like, it's one of the things that's always fascinating about humans, how they can pick up language all the time.
Definitely. We've got the Steph on video. Whoop!
Hey, Seth.
I'm looking like I'm on Mars or something, man.
Yeah, it looks like you're in a dark room.
Why am I so red?
District.
Mate, you look like Satan.
Yeah.
Lucifer is in the building, man.
I'm freaking myself out.
So how you doing, Seth?
Yeah, I'm all right, man. That took a lot longer than I thought it was going to.
Well, as we were just talking about kids, man. You know what I mean? They're lords to their own selves, aren't they?
Yeah, they don't do what I tell them.
So, Matt, while you're here, because we've all been waiting for you to get here to talk about sort of like we were talking about at the start of this conversation about salvation, and they both Ben and Josh said, "Wow, you're the man to talk to about salvation."
We palmed it all off on you, Seth. We were like, where is he?
Well done, well done.
And you know the thing is now, I'm sitting there looking at a big deep red face, and I'm asking about salvation. Doesn't feel right.
You don't want to talk to me about salvation.
You want to know salvation?
No, but you're saying that you. But what I'm trying to say is, they were saying that you knew Mr. G himself, yeah?
Yeah.
So we were talking about the salvation ones. We were saying that. My question I was asked originally was, did he write the tune, the words specifically for the tunes, or were they snippets of a bigger piece of work?
It was a complete piece that he'd written, and I fit the music to the speech, if you like. So.
Well, was there any like was there any like concept between you guys, or were you just kind of like out of nowhere, like, you know, obviously you knew what he was into and his kind of style, but did you say like any sort of specifics towards what you wanted, or what kind of music you were building towards it, or did he just kind of send you stuff and you just kind of send him stuff, is what I was wondering.
Yeah, he gave me a whole bunch of stuff. He just kept them coming, and you never know how it's going to work out, you know. Just the ones that, yeah, I never have a clue what's gonna work and what isn't. So I just, you know, keep on experimenting and trying, and that was one that just came together. So yeah, it was a remote collaboration entirely. So yeah, he didn't ask for anything. I didn't ask for anything. But the one thing we did do was, once we kind of put down the basic thing, gotten it, you know, pretty much as it was going to be, I had him go back and record the vocals again, and retrofitted the new vocals to the piece. So it was like working.
Nice pros.
Well, that all will be left in suspense until he returns. Oh, he's taking Ryan with him as well, man.
Like that's just frozen in the perfect position. It's just like
Yeah.
You had to do a screen capture of that. Put that on your album.
Oh man, you guys completely froze and disappeared for about 30 seconds there. Was I still talking?
no.
You had a nice pose that was something like this.
Oh, good. Where was I? What was I talking about? No, anyway.
You talk about saying with. So, how long did you know Mr. G for? Quite a long time.
Well, I can't even remember how I came across him in the first place. I think it was just on SoundCloud. Something, you know, one of those things that just pops up. And I was like, oh, you know, I'd been only working with kind of older, more familiar figures, if you like, historical figures up until that point. And I was really, I'd started looking for some, you know, contemporary writers and speakers and people who were kind of, you know, out and about doing stuff. And came across Mr. G, and I didn't know who he was. I had no idea what he'd done, but I listened to a bunch of his stuff that was up, and I was really impressed. So, you know, not knowing who he was, I you know, used the internet to contact him, and he was cool enough to get back to me right away. And then he was like, "Yeah, this is a good." You know, I said, I suggested collaborating, and he was like, "Yeah, all right, let's meet up and have a chat." We did that,
I have a
and
question.
we took it from there.
Is this something you would do? I know this is something you do as a passion, a love, but is this something you would do on a commission as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
I come across a lot of great sounds, spoken word of. Specifically, I listen to podcasts all the time about cryptocurrencies, and sort of a lot of the people have a lot of slant that is a little bit more on the edges of anarcho-capitalism or anarcho-socialism or whatever. But a lot of what they have to say is awesome, and I was thinking I need to start collecting these audio clips of these guys talking. And that would be awesome to.
Anything you have that's good, just send it to me. I'm always looking, and
Awesome.
you can never get enough.
Okay.
And that obviously those are incredibly interesting subjects, and the words themselves are really intriguing. Cryptocurrency just has a nice kind of ring to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. On the topic of like Network 99, which is an app that's going to be based on the Maidsafe platform. I don't know if you all ever listened to Sovereign Tech, but Brian Sovereign he mentioned I think Maidsafe 5 times in his last podcast, and he gets quite a bit of listeners. So it seems like this information about Maidsafe is growing and growing, and I think about the first quarter of next year, it's going to be interesting when it finally gets released to see the type of movement, the type of collaborations that are going to be able to occur with visual arts, audio arts, and we were talking last week about how cool it's going to be to have a library that people can add to within the Network 99 system that everybody can access. Whether it be and especially nowadays when people are constantly recording live with their cell phones, imagine being able to hook up to a decentralized network where everything, whether it's at a conference, whatever it is, it could be uploaded to a library that's constantly growing and growing and growing that you can access for your creative purposes.
Yes.
Yeah, so anyway, I'm looking forward to something along that line. I haven't said much during this whole thing, but I got to actually leave now. It's at 1 o'clock where I am, and I'm due to be somewhere. So it's nice meeting all you guys.
Yeah, you too, man. Briefly, but.
Yeah. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, cool, Rich. I'll speak to you in the week, my man.
All right, cool.
Have a good
Take
one,
care,
man.
Rich. Well, I don't know about you guys, but this is my first experience on Google Hangouts.
Yeah. It's an interesting world, isn't it?
It's trying to work out what the etiquette is for everything. Am I allowed to drink wine?
You can do whatever you like, my man. Do whatever you like. I don't give a shit.
Right on. Oh, my camera's gone a different shade of weird now. Look at that.
Are you just turning lights off gradually in the room?
I'm not doing anything. I'm going to turn the light on, though. Let me try that. Moving around. Yeah, that's done just about nothing.
Do you know, one of the tunes that I love on the Salvation album, I definitely have to talk to you about, is Passing Strangers. Now, I think that's something that I can really relate to, and I'm sure a lot of people, because the minute you move from one town to another, you become that Passing Strangers.
Yeah.
But it's the whole sort of theme of that is so true. And the bit when he says, like, what do you think the toilets clean themselves?
Yeah.
That's a hard hitter, that one, and yeah, it's close to home for a lot of people, I think.
But it plays with what I mean. The essence of that's what I love about what we all do. The essence is all we want is the best for people, don't we? And I think we touched on this last episode that it's that idea of just making people understand that we are just on a rock together. You do know that, people, don't you? Do you know what I mean? And it's amazing how many people just pass by. That's what that song talks about. Just pass by people and don't even see them as human beings. And I don't know if you listened to the link I sent you, Seth, but they had a recording from Martin Luther King at the end of it, and he was saying that yeah, it was talking about the same thing back in the 60s. So it was our ability as human beings to walk past other human beings that led to the Nazi Party, you know, and it's so relevant even to this day. And you know, I was just thinking that the other day. Do you think that we come a point where this will not become relevant? Do you think that? Do you think there will ever be a point? I don't know, because I think it's amazing to me. It's as relevant today as it was back in the the 60s or the 500 years ago.
No, definitely. Well, I think it's, for me, like, I don't know if you've ever seen the Great Dictator, Charlie Chaplin film with that epic speech at the end. Like, what was that? Like 1944, around. And you listen to it now, and it's just still so relevant for today's, like, political issues and all that kind of stuff. It's just ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, it begs the question, has anything really changed?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I think it all just comes full circle, and yeah, they're only helping to prove the point.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah,
Well,
it does hammer that home.
Well, it sort of ties a bit with what Richard's saying, I mean, that's hopefully what we're trying to build here, because I think the only way to stop this cycle is take the money away from them.
Yeah.
That's the only one I can think of. I mean, I've lived long enough to sort of say, okay, maybe one puppet on the left or the puppet on the right would solve my issues. They don't. They're all just interested in the same thing. If we can take the money away from them so they can't go and make bombs to go and kill people, that would be a huge step. I'll take that one. If I die before my lifetime and I haven't got any more money to make any bombs to kill people, hey, it might not be the perfect world, but at least it's a world, eh? That's how I think. Yeah. And that's what I see coming up everywhere in the world at the moment. All I'm seeing is that people connecting and going, man, we can solve this. We can take the money away from them, so we don't have to watch kids being killed on the TV anymore.
Yeah.
It's about breaking the cycle.
It is.
There's a lot of cycles that need to be broken, and it takes, it really takes people who are courageous and continually speaking up, taking a stand against things. And not everybody's prepared to do that, and it's hard to get the kind of level of mainstream attention and support that people have in the past these days.
It is harder, but in some ways it's easier because we've got forms of communication now that we've never had before. Do you know what I mean? I remember 20 years ago, you try standing up and going, oh, I've read Kropotkin, I've been to the Black Flag and stuff, and the people would be like, what are you talking about? At least now we have the ability, like we're doing, we're talking, and this is the great thing, I think, what I know we're trying to build is to get people, I truly believe, we get people to connect with each other. That's a great step towards this, what we're talking about. It's a way of breaking that cycle. It's just getting people to connect with each other.
No, definitely. I think in terms of sort of how people put it across, I think that music is the best way to be doing that, and I don't think enough people do that. Try and portray that message across through the music. It seems to be a lot more these days, and personal gain, and let's make it big, let's make millions, so I can have a big, massive White House and loads of fancy cars outside. Is actually what you get out of it, sort of, by trying to put that message across in music.
Well, it goes back to what we were saying earlier on, because that's the short-term gain of how society's built up. It's built up for people like that. And it's not, I mean, think yourself. I mean, if you're going to write an album right now, and your short-term gain was, I want to get out of my shitty neighbourhood and I want to live in a big house. Well, you're going to write what people want. You're going to write, oh, I lost you, baby. You're not going to write stuff like that because that's your quickest way out. It's a short-term way out. But that's how society's been constructed around us. But that's not, like you said before, as you mentioned yourself before, Josh, things that when we do it, you take your time because they are bigger, longer. We're all taking a longer term view. We're all, what you're writing about in the Fold, you probably know that, just by putting one single out, it's not going to solve the Middle Eastern conflict, but you're still trying to do it because you think, okay, if I just plant a few seeds, if I just try to shift people's mind, hopefully in the longer term. But as you know, as we all know, we're not surrounded by a society that thinks that way. Whether it's on a personal level amongst your friends, or even on a large scale.
Yeah, no, definitely agree with that too.
Well, even like Seth was saying earlier about trying, like how hard it is to try and reach people on a mainstream level. I think we all know it's not even like about, you know, reaching, like we can't just like grab somebody and, you know, shake them around and say, you know, the certain words to make them, you know, change and understand, you know, the reality of, you know, the one mind, the idea that we're all in it together. It's just something that it has to it's almost like a drug, like it has to sink in and then, or it has to hit you and then slowly sink in, and you have to, you know, it slowly absorbs you, and then you just see it in everything that you do and everything that you try to be and everything that, you know, drives you and keeps you going. And it's not a Hallmark card. It's not, you know, some simple message that you can, you know, post on Twitter to, you know, try to get somebody to alter their entire, you know, belief system. But at the same time, that's what we're all, you know, that's what people like us are fighting and trying to do. And it's not necessarily our idea of, you know, right, wrong, moral, unmoral. It's you know, it's just about heart and respect and growing and understanding. And, you know, those concepts are so vague, but at the same time so freeing and so liberating. And that, I mean, to me, that is what why I do what I do, and, you know, why I'm here talking to you guys and loving what everybody's doing. And it just keeps me going.
No, definitely. I think trying to reach people on a mainstream level, I think there's like, you know, there's barriers there. There's a certain level where they can see up to but can't see past. You know, just when it comes to, you know, how people dress and all that kind of stuff, do they actually listen to the, you know, the lyrics and the words, and do they actually understand what message they're trying to put out there?
Yeah, that one of the things Tim asked me last time was how the Ceiling Demons came across over in the U.S. and you know, I said that, you know, it's fine, it's perfect, like they're, you know, I can hear everything word for word, but at the same time I didn't say it, but in the back of my mind I was just thinking, like, people don't listen to lyrics like you would expect them to. It's not a you know, if you play a sad song and it's got a happy dance beat behind it, you bet your ass they're happy, they're dancing, and they're not listening to, you know, those lyrics, or, you know, the reason why somebody would put happy music to a sad, you know, song or whatever. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it is the lyrics, and I think a lot of that is kind of, you know, we all do want to kind of reach that mainstream audience, but then at the same time, we all understand that that mainstream audience isn't as open as we want it to be, as we would hope it to be. And it is that kind of, you know, balancing act, like you were saying earlier, and how we kind of have to, you know, what's acceptable, what's not, as far as perception of audience and what they're going to hear and what we're trying to put out. And yeah, you don't want to be misunderstood. Nobody wants to be misunderstood.
No, of course, yeah. Definitely.
But at the end of the day, I mean, I'm sure I can only speak for myself. I don't do anything when I'm creating. I don't think of the mainstream. I don't think of the in scene. I don't think. Do you know what I think about? Nothing. I try to lose all my thoughts and just tap into that thing, and that's the only thing that pleases me. The rest of it, I don't ever try to tame my stuff for any kind of mainstream. And I think the mainstream is only defined by what people are generally thinking, and and that's. Do you know what? That changed.
You know what, Tim? That's the best. That's the best thing I've heard. That you know, when you've ever like just picked up your instrument and you know you've got a couple of hours spare, you start playing, and then you think you've been playing 20 minutes, and actually you've been playing for 4 straight hours, and you come out of it and you kind of just drained, emotionally drained, because you're like, I literally blanked out for that whole 4 hours, just lost myself in writing music. Just crazy.
And that's the only. And when you're in that moment, you don't think of anything else other than just that. And I think that's one of the hardest things that. That is basically the element of creation, isn't it? It's making something that starts with nothing and you're making it into something. Yeah. And the only way you can do that is like we were talking about earlier on. It's almost to clear the mind. That's why I was saying about the silence is a real great one to help the creative spirit, because you clear your mind, and then suddenly I found. Oh, blimey, it could be anything. I want to pick up the piano, pick up the guitar, pick up a pen. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure I can't be the only one with that experience. I'm sure you guys have had the same.
Well, like one of the things we were talking about with the Ceiling Demons last week was, you know, when you do a spoken word and you're up there and it's the microphone, it's your voice in the silence. And one of the images that I was thinking, even as I was saying it, was just you know, kind of this stage light, and then just hearing like, you know, silence, and then just a lion, you know, growl. And you know, I'm sure that's kind of what it's like for you, Tim, when you do a painting. You know, you go from, you know, it's you and the blank page, it's you and the silent piece of paper, and then you know in your mind it's not going to be that blank piece of paper that you started with. You're going to keep going, and you're going to build on that. And sometimes I'll look at a blank piece of paper, and I just know in the back of my mind, like staring at it, like I'm going to destroy this piece of paper. Like it's not going to be as blank as it was when I got to it, because I got things coming out and things ready to happen. And usually it does end up that way. The pages do get destroyed.
That's what I usually say about Josh's mum, but what?
But man, we've all been there, haven't we? I mean, the hardest thing is when you sit and, you know, when I'm looking at a bit of paper, whatever, it's sometimes it's when you almost try to force yourself and think, I must write, I must do this tune, and that's when you never. I think it's one of the hardest things. It's also like the polar opposite is when you sit there and it drives you mad just looking at a bit of paper like that. And you're like, and it's almost like we were saying. It's trying to find that way where your mind's free to just let that creation flow out. Do you know what I mean? Whatever the form may be, it's getting that mindset. But then you never know. I don't know. I might only speaking for myself, but I never know at times when this shit happens. Man, I remember I used to have tunes come out to me in the most random places. Sitting on the bus, going down to Park Lane College. Boom, out comes a tune. If we knew when it was going to come out, wow. I don't know. Is that just me? Am I the only one that has that one, or is that?
We've had situations like that where Sev's come down with an idea for a track, and we've jammed it for a good 2.5 hours, and it's just not feeling it. It's just not going where we want it to go, and then we think, oh, we'll just take it back to basics. The first time we play it, going back to basics, it just kind of something just falls into place, and it's just like, wow, yeah, that was banging. Let's do more of that.
Yeah, it's always when you're trying too hard, nothing good ever comes out of that.
And you're trying to make something that it doesn't need to be.
Yep.
The more simple that you think and you make it, that's when the best stuff comes out.
That is
I
true.
call it the 2 a.m. moments, because it's always that moment when you're just drifting off to sleep and you get the best idea that you've ever had, and it's when your mind's just kind of like void of sort of any other thoughts and stuff. It's when it just kind of comes to you, it hits you. Or maybe that's just me.
No. I mean, it's very true. I mean, I think it's amazing. Like when people say to me, like almost a bit like Ryan was saying, people say, "Oh, I can't be creative," and I think, well, every night you'll hit that pillow and you'll enter it. Say 8 hours of a place. You try telling me that's not creative. That whole sleep experience, and we all go through that every single day. So when people say, "Oh, I can't be creative," I'm like, well, maybe you should put a pen and a pad by the side of your bed in the morning and just try to.
Seth doesn't have that sleep experience. He's got kids. Seth just never slept.
He sleeps in ways that we don't know about. Trust me.
I don't know how you do it, Seth, man.
Well, I just have to take inspiration whenever it comes. I don't have a choice.
But isn't that a strange one about us as human beings? That, do you know what I mean? How many times you've been driving down the motorway in a car and you're like, Brian, don't switch off now.
Yeah.
What is it about us human? What is it about us human beings that every, I don't know, certain period of time we have to shut down and enter this magical world of trippy dreams and things that we can't even remember, and then we come out and go, oh, okay, yeah, I remember the end bit of that. That's a very strange thing about us as a human experience, isn't it?
Yeah. It must be just the sheer amount of stimuli that you're exposed to on a daily basis. Your brain can absorb so much information, and it doesn't have time to process it. You just need to switch off. Let your brain kind of rearrange the jumbled madness of reality.
Every single time was back at university or at college. We're talking way back now, but you could be wide awake, and how can you walk into a lecture theatre, a classroom, and sit down, and immediately just that wave of sleep hits you out of nowhere, and you cannot for the life of you keep your eyes open. just out of nowhere. Just like, it's impossible. Come out of the lecture, walk out of the room, wide awake, absolutely fine again. Like.
And especially when, even at times when it's a lecture you want to be in. I mean, it's fair enough in lectures you don't want to be, but sometimes, you know what I mean? You're in a lecture, you really want to be there, and you really, oh, great, I want to learn this stuff, and you're like, oh. Maybe it goes back to us when we were children. I mean, maybe it's like Seth would know. I mean, he'll talk to his child in a certain way. Maybe it's just, you know, part of our memories that we just have certain. It's like some lectures are so tonal. And hello, and welcome to the lecture on Chinese history. And you think, oh, you know, maybe it's just that. Maybe it's a tonal one in our brains. Maybe that's what switches us off.
Maybe. At least the classroom's less dangerous than a motorway.
Well, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were saying that basically there's 4 different sounds that it doesn't matter what language it is that parents will have to a child, like, you know, the short stop or come here, come in. It doesn't matter what language, the tone's always the same. So maybe that's what maybe there's a lecturer tone that every time you hear someone that's banging on, you're just like, oh, whatever. I don't know.
I think we learn better from personal experiences. I think sat in a chair and having information, you know, just spoken to you and expecting to remember that, I think it hits home a lot more if, you know, you learn from hand-to-hand sort of experience and learning from your mistakes and all that kind of stuff. I think that's how people learn better.
It's something that me and Steph have talked about, collaboration. I think that's a real key to being creative is a collaborative process of mixing and meeting people and having new influences come in and, you know, sparking ideas off. I mean, I know you, Steph, you mentioned that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You know, you always end up with something better and different than you could ever come up with by yourself. You know, why wouldn't you want to do that?
Well,
sitting around in your own head for too long is not good. you stop improving after a while.
Exactly, you do, and as you know, Steph, when you got the children yourself, it's a curiosity of human beings. At that age, they love to be collaborating with anyone, don't they? You know, and it's something it's just pushed out of us as we get older, and we're told not to don't talk to anybody. Just put your head down and carry on. And
your comfort zone grows exponentially as you get older. You know, you just don't want to be wrenched out of it anymore. But if you keep doing it, keep pushing, you know, you benefit.
Exactly. So how's the single gone across? Because that was, you know, I mean, have you had with the back of what that was done was for as well? How's that sort of going along? Have you had that hit a chime with people, or
Are you
Human Again?
The last one?
Yeah, Human Again.
Yeah. It was kind of done on an emergency basis, so we didn't quite have the usual kind of campaign behind it, but it definitely, people did respond to it, above and beyond what I expected. You know, it's kind of, when you present that to the traditional music press and, you know, all the blogs and everything, you know that the reaction, you're taking a risk, basically, because people are so divided on the subject. You know, not that they should be, but nobody wants to stick their head above the parapet and get it cut off, and, you know, so I didn't expect much in terms of, you know, actually getting music press behind it. And I knew it wouldn't get on, you know, national radio or anything. It's strange that you can't, as an artist, you're allowed to, you know, represent yourself, and but if you try to go to a radio station with something that's for a charity, something like the BBC can't play you. You know, we had all the people who usually want to play us on BBC radio, they couldn't play that track because they're not allowed to sort of take sides and represent a charity, which is weird. You know, there's something wrong about that logic for me. But, you know, go ahead.
They're hindering your creative process. You know, if you feel strongly for a charity, you do something for a charity, and then, you know, they tell you, you know, no, we don't want to play that. You know, they're almost telling you, kind of how to be creative and how you should feel about the projects that you want to do and you want to be involved in, and that's not their job. They're not supposed to be, they're not supposed to take sides, but just by showing something, that's not taking sides. I mean, it
I
is
don't
kind
think
of
it is.
no.
I don't see how it's an endorsement one way or another, unless they, specifically said this is for X, Y, and Z, and that's what we believe it should be.
Even if they bring up the charity, like, that's one thing. But if they go out, in mentioning the video, I'm gonna be that person that's like, well, why is this song here? Why is this video going on? Oh, well, they're, not only promoting their single, but they're doing a charity. Like, why not bring up the charity? That's, you're not taking a side. You're just endorsing the group that you've already, chosen to endorse. And
I think if it had been a fluffier kind of subject, we might have gotten away with it.
Yeah, but that's the point I'm making, Seth. I mean, what meetings did we all miss where it's suddenly saying, I don't want human beings to be killed, is seen as a controversial issue?
Yeah.
I mean, what meeting did we miss? Where? Really? Because, you're not, that's what I mean. It's like, you're not saying anything that's controversial. All you're saying is that, can we just do something to stop the fact that little kids are being killed? Is that's not controversial in my eyes? And especially as you put, I love the little thing you put on it above on your SoundCloud where you say, we do not align ourselves with political entities, we align ourselves with human beings. Now, when's that anybody can't get behind?
I thought that was pretty clear, and we were only looking to raise funds for medical aid. We weren't providing military aid.
No.
That's hardly taking sides.
No, but even then, you it seems like you've researched the charity, and not only researching the charity, but researched, why you wanted to do it and what you believed in, and not being able to make a song and get it played at a spot where you usually get played because you have that sort of idealism backing your motivations or whatever is it's like Tim said, it's not something that's controversial at all. And but the fact that it apparently it has an organization or some name or some groups behind it that other names, groups, and organizations don't want to be, it's politics. It's ridiculous.
Well, especially at the end of the day, I mean, whether anybody else does it for, all you're trying to do is because you don't want children killed. That's all. That's all we're trying to say, isn't it? You know what I mean? I mean, whatever happens in between hand, and I just think it's really funny that the people that will never question the people that feed this complex, this military complex, and they don't want to talk about that issue, but are quite happy to say, oh, you can't play that. And I think that's something that's wrong, and that's honestly that's why I want to build and make this album in 99 work, because I think it's a wrong narrative in society to have that it's okay to not criticise the people who build the bombs, but we can criticise the people that say, well, I don't want children killed. That to me is just fundamentally wrong. That's my opinion.
Well, even what kind of Rich was talking about with anarcho-capitalism, one of the big things there is non-aggression, and talking about that charity. There is nothing aggressive about that charity. You're not speaking, you're not calling out people by name. You're not speaking. You're talking a very grassroots humanism stance of trying to stop killing. I mean, how much more basic can you get than that? And for any group to not get behind that for whatever reason, mind blowing.
I found it odd.
Yeah.
But not altogether surprising.
Not at all. Not at all.
That's
still,
the part about it is the fact that it isn't surprising that it wasn't picked up. I mean, let's face it. There's no sort of vested government interest in this at the moment. I think it's a sad world that we live in.
Yeah, but that's the point, though, isn't it? I mean, you're right, but that's why we have to stand up, collaborate with each other, and build the new world. That's how I see it. Not as competition for them, but the only reason that evil allows to breed and exist is because good men stand at the side and let it happen.
I think on this occasion it was very positive. Well, not what happened, but the media response to it was, I think, for the first time that I've been aware of, the truth actually was able to catch up with the lies, and the awareness was much greater. The actual awareness of what was going on, as opposed to people swallowing the propaganda, was really high this time. And well, especially looking on social media, not so much mainstream TV and everything, but yeah, I've never seen it. I've never seen it like that.
Well, that's just kind of what's funny to me is it seems like people on the Twitter level, or any of the social media, like they do gravitate towards those. Like you were saying earlier about an artist, you get a label or a TV, whatever, they sponsor these artists, but then as soon as they want you to be yourself, and as soon as you start really trying to sort of draw some sort of line, it's kind of like the big groups kind of shun away from it, and they're kind of like, yeah, I don't know, like you might be going out on a limb here. But then once you hit social media, it seems like everybody is just so on it and so on board with put the positive messages and the positive reinforcements. And yeah, the social media and the mass media, it's very weird lives that they live, kind of juxtaposing each other.
And that's exactly the point where we're at, right? We're at the point now where technology, we're seeing this connection, this mode rising through the Twitter and social media, and that's exactly what that's, as that's probably what I've talked about enough on this. That's what we're aiming to build with M99, because it's the idea that if you can push it up another level, where people can have the ability to talk in a private way without feeling they're being watched and therefore maybe happening. Can you imagine the advance we're going to make? Do you know what I mean? With more people connecting, and more. Because I tell you what, I'm old enough to remember when they did the Iraqi first one, not even the second one, and people just marched on behind that. Bill Hicks. We talked about Bill Hicks, man. He was, he went from being really popular to nothing at all the minute he stood back against the war. But now, man, if he was alive now, he'd be a hero. People would be queuing up in the box to go and see him because this technology has allowed us to connect. And all I'm standing right now and saying, there's a new technology coming that's going to help us connect even more. And I think that's what we need to step up and move on, because I've always think that the people that we stand for, the creative people, have always done that. Whether it was rap back in the day, whether it was blues back in the day, whether it's been filmmakers, they've always done the same thing. They've always gotten to the edge of where things are, and for that push to make people to build a better world.
Yeah.
It seems like the edgy, really creative ones are always, somewhat ahead of the curve. And I don't even think it's a matter of being ahead of the curve. I think it's just, utilizing what's there to you and what's available, and being able to see what everybody else is doing with it, and then kind of looking at it and say, what, I think I'm going to go, a little bit further because I see what you're doing, and, I've learned from it. I think there's, more to be had there. And that's what drives me. Just keep going out there, keep making, going further, making the connections,
Definitely, yeah.
So while we're all here, I've got to say, I know Ryan's tapped on it, but I love your remix of Every Step. Now, as you know, I'm quite a bigger fan. I'm the Demons. Now, that tune, I don't know if you're aware of what I don't know if you know that the boys who want to put it out as a single for Carver charity. They're trying to put out, along with depression charity.
Yes.
Ryan's going to be working on the visuals on it and stuff like that. Now, again, on the process of that, who did the majority? Was that a complete band project, or did one of you do more work on that than another, or?
That was me.
Most of the mixes come from Steph, unfortunately.
It's all Papa Seth.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was me.
Because you've just changed that tune. You've taken it to a whole different level. It was something you should be really proud of. You really should, because I know this particular one song that I was saying last week on last week's edition, that I've loved that song for so long, and then you just came along and was like, whoa. And I told you before, I'm hoping to say, if that's going to be a huge club hit, And I know I'm an old man saying that, maybe I'm really out of touch, but...
Thanks,
Oh,
man.
thanks, man. We were really touched because I was talking to Si and Dan over social media, and they were saying that they want to put it out as the like the lead track on the single they're going to put out as well. So that's like huge honour.
Well, I think it'd be great if we could do a kind of like a launch night. If we get you boys there as well. Do you know what I mean?
But yeah, we're in talks at the moment. It's being planned as we speak.
Exactly, man. We'll get it done in Leeds. And you boys have got. See, I've seen on your site you've got a gig coming up in Halifax. Any other sort of gigs you've got planned coming up in the sort of coming months, or is it? What are you doing now? You're writing down. Where you at?
Bit of both.
We've had a bit of time in the studio over in Huddersfield that I was mentioning earlier. So we've got plans for double A single coming out Decemberish time. We've got a couple of gigs coming up. One in Halifax, one in Leeds on November the 14th, and booking up for the rest of the year. But yeah, we've taken a bit of time out to do a bit of writing. So hopefully around about the time the single comes out, we'll sort of pick up the live side of things again and get on that.
Perfect. I mean, that's and then is you sort of like hoping to put another sort of big album out before the end of the year, or is that sort of next year?
Yeah, that's something that we're working towards ever so gradually, releasing these singles, because we find that some bands, if you take time to write an album, you sort of lose momentum, and we're trying to always keep ourselves, especially within the social media sort of group, keeping stuff being released and that, but eventually building all these releases up to a collective album.
Perfect. I mean, it's one of the things that I've always sort of said. I mean, one of my wishes and dreams that hopefully by the time we go live on the network, I want to have an album out with all the bands that I've had on this editions, and it's going to be such a cool album. Do you know what I mean? So if you boys are up for doing a track for me, I'll be well happy, because do you know what I mean? What I love about what we're all doing right now is that it's exactly what you boys are. What I love most about what you lads are doing is it's a bit like Seth was saying. You've got the balls to stand up and say what you're saying. Do you know? And you should have from someone who's an outside listener, you should take a lot of pride in that, and it is making an effect, because I've heard about you and I would have never heard about you, and it's something that I'm really proud that someone, especially from a city that I align myself to, that this is rising in the city of Leeds, and I just want to. I can't say that enough times to you boys, really, because I think you're part of a generation that's going to fundamentally change the world. I mean, I'm old enough to sort of be a bit beyond all this, and if I had the power the tools at my hand, that I've been at your age with the energy that you have and the good 20 years ahead of you, man, you're part of the generation that's going to change the world, and it's going to be bands like you and the Demons and people like this who are going to. People look back in 10 years' time and go, wow, blimey, they did change and shape things to an immense degree, and that's because you're standing up, and do you know what I mean? And that's a big thing. It's a big thing. I
really hope so. I really hope that happens. Definitely.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying I'm sure you'd be the same as like every band I've ever spoken to. You're not doing this. I don't know, maybe you are, but you're not doing it for the fame, the fortune. And if I gave you $1 million of whatever currency, you wouldn't go out and spend it on yourselves. You probably want to generate out and building better projects.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean about standing up, because you're not standing up and saying, hey, look at my gold chain, bling, 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 give me, I want to become an X Factor. You're actually doing it for the right reasons. And you will, if you continue at it, you will flourish and thrive. The Demons say, you'll flower and thrive. You will do it, because I'll tell you what, because you do it for the right intentions. Yeah. And as much as you wait, it's hard now, man. I'm telling you, and people are going to look back and instead of it being going, oh wow, I wish I'd gone and seen the Fold back in the day. Do you know what I mean? So Rick, I know. You don't need me to tell you to keep at it, but I am. I'm saying I think I just want to put all my love into what you boys are doing, and as I said before, I'll definitely promote it as much as I can, and I want you to join the project that we're doing, because I feel honoured that you're associated. I feel honoured that I know you and I can talk to you. And do you know what I mean? And I think you can hit an audience that I can never reach. I can't reach that shit.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. We feel massively honoured to be here and to be able to be involved with it anyway. I mean, it's nice because it's born out of like a shared passion for music, but a shared passion for wanting to sort of stand up and say something as well. You know, it's all well and good sort of having the creative side of wanting to create music and doing that for personal enjoyment and for other people's enjoyment, but it's born out of wanting to put that message across as well, which I think it gives it a more sort of grounded meaning for us anyway. So yeah, no, really means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, really appreciate that, man.
No, I just think that one of the things I kind of like being a bit long in the tooth in the sense of it, I just know that the greatest strength we have as people is in connecting ourselves, keeping in touch, because that's one of the things a lot of creative people do. They meet and they never, you know, and equally, just word of mouth. Do you know that's one of the most powerful things we can ever do? Is we just all go out and we promote each other and help each other. We'll soon change the world. We really will. And I really, truly, in my heart, know that to be true because I've seen it happen. I'm old enough to know I've seen it happen. And look what's going on in Hong Kong right now. My word.
This is how you break the cycle.
Exactly.
Definitely.
One bit at a time.
It is, one bit at a time. So, I'm going to, Ryan, is there anything else you want to sort of chip in, mate?
I'm gonna be busting my ass until November 5th trying to get this music video done for the Ceiling Demons Bold remix.
Awesome.
So, I have a lot of wicked ideas for it. I'm working on some masks right now. I got some people ready to do some fire dancing, possibly eat some fire. It's gonna be fun doing, and yeah, I just hope everybody likes it. So that's what I'm gonna be doing for the next month.
Looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, definitely. Can't wait to check that one out.
It's gonna be equal parts. I'm trying to go for beautiful and mysticism and humanity at the same time, and I think I'm gonna be able to do it. It's gonna be a pain, but yeah, it always is.
Tell me about it.
Ryan, as I tell you every week, my friend, it's not a case of I will be, you will do it, my friend. There's no ifs or buts. You're going to do this, man. It's inside of you. It's inside of you. It's not inside of me. It's inside of you.
There's absolutely no doubt. It's just a matter of, I think a lot of us understand you go into something, in your heart and your inspirations, it's going to come out, probably better than you ever imagined it, whether you get the specific things that you wanted or not. And we're smart enough that we can make it work and we can do it. But it's still, no matter how much you plan and no matter how much you go into it, it's still that work, that hustle, that those demons. It's all of that, and it's the process, and it's an amazing thing.
Completely agree.
Right, well, cool, lads. I'm going to wrap this podcast up, seeing we're 10 minutes over our sort of schedule. Like I said before, I mean, the offer's always here. Anytime you boys want to come on, is anything you want to... I mean, I know Zephyr sort of mentioned, anything you want to come on and talk about, please. I mean, it's anything now you want to talk about, please. I mean, don't sort of... I don't want to be cutting anybody off. If there's things you want to tell the world about, please.
Well, we got a lot of things we want to tell the world about, but, it's one step at a time.
What's the band camp? Everyone can go there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, see, we're terrible at promoting ourselves. We don't have a clue.
So am I. I'm absolutely the worst. I'm just trying to help you guys.
We got a website. We got well.
Oh shit, that's right. You can give us money. I forgot. I totally.
It's so easy to give us money.
That's how it is though with us. It's I forgot. Yeah, there's a tip jar. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Hopefully this proves how sincere we are and not really wanting to be famous and make money.
But I can tell them about it. Fold FM. So just type Fold FM into your Google, your search box, and you'll find their whole page. Facebook, Twitter, Fold FM again on Twitter.
Salvation with Mr. G.
Yeah, exactly. Salvation with Mr. G. Do you know what I mean? Just I don't know what I would recommend is that people just don't put fold into a Google search because you'll go through pages and pages. So it's fold FM. Be clear on that, or fold band. Because if not, you're there for hours trying to find.
We keep getting notifications that we're playing gigs down in London, and we're like, are we? What's that? We've got family members coming up going, are you playing down in London, boys, tomorrow? I'm like, no, I don't think so. Well, yeah. Watch this space for the for the up and coming single. We're sort of really proud of how it's come out. So we're quite eager to to push that out and see what kind of response we get from that.
Oh, definitely. I mean, like I said, I've said to you before. If you wait, obviously we're pushing it as much as we can on this, thing, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? We just help each other out, push each other along, and do you know what I mean? And I'm just going to be truthfully, it's going to be great that in 10 years' time people will look back and go, oh, I didn't see the fold. I'm going to think you fools. You fools. This is why Ryan mentioned this last week. That's what I love about with the back, especially like you and the singing teams and stuff. I'm seeing this for a band I really can get behind, and I'm actually seeing it happen in front of my eyes. Not just I'm getting into the Wu-Tang Clan or Scarface from the 90s. You're here now doing it. I love that. It's been it's great. So as I said before, don't be doing any of that rock and roll stuff. Don't be jumping off cliffs and on a coke binge and stuff like that. I want a good 10 years of stuff coming out of you boys, man.
What I was kind of trying to say was that it's just nice to hear great new music coming out and not have to not be like, oh, I have to discover the whole back catalog and go through the history and do whatever. Like, I can actually see somebody first couple EP singles come out and be like, wow, I'm really excited about that. I'm really behind that. The future, I have music to look forward to tomorrow, that sort of thing, and not just trying to discover what's been done already, but yeah, to see it progressing and keep going, like that's awesome, amazing thing.
It's just another chain in the line of things. We had the Mission, we had Utah Saints, we had Chumbawamba, we had the Kaiser Chiefs, the Pigeon Detectives, and now this is the band. This is Leeds. This is representing that city, man. This is the band. All people who listen to this, who I know listen to it, Leeds. Go and find them. That's the band. That's the band from Leeds.
Tim, do we have permission to use that as a quote? Because that's probably one of the best ones we've had so far.
Line me up. I'll give you a quote after quote. It's the new. You are the new Bob Dylan.
Can't agree to that one.
Imagine a band with 4 Bob Dylans.
No, cheers, man.
No, it's true though, but it's because I say that because one of the things about, particularly in Leeds bands, I mean, we're going to get into the sort of story as you know from Leeds, but Leeds is one of those cities in England that's kind of looked over for music. Everyone sort of go to London, and there's a whole that whatever. But Leeds has had the great thing I've always loved about the bands from Leeds particularly, they've always just come from the streets. I mean, maybe you like them or not, but the Pigeon Detectives, another one, they just come from the streets. And that's what I see with you boys. And there's another really boy I don't know if you're aware of. Are you aware of a band called Stateless?
No.
Well, you should be, because you should definitely try to link up with them, because what the similarities are very, very similar. They play around with sort of like the same sort of music style as you do, but they've got one of their members is from New York and the other two from Leeds.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I've heard of these guys.
So you want to check them out, man. They're called Stateless. They've been around for about 4 or 5 years. But check out, go to YouTube and stuff out their stuff, because that's what I'm saying. There's a few bands that are coming through that's gonna. I tell you, they're gonna in 5 or 6 years' time, people are gonna go, oh wow, that's where that scene was born. And what's fascinating to me, this scene seems to be coming from Yorkshire. I mean, it's no sort of fluke so far that we've been full of Yorkshire people. And I mean, don't know what it is. Something in the water, Yorkshire water.
Yeah, it's the altitude. It's the altitude.
No, it's not. It's the certain things that grow in Middleton Park. But that's another conversation.
I've already Google mapped it. I'm there next weekend.
Good man. Just make out. All you need. The best thing to do. All you need is a dog. It's perfect cover. Because you do look a bit like Walkman anyway. I shouldn't be saying this. I'll give you all the secrets and leaves away. Shh. Right, boys. I'm going to cut this off. So from another edition of Life is People. Oh, by the way, next week we've got Ada on. Idea from who did the render for our site.
Oh.
And I just want to put this out because I've had a fascinating conversation with her. She's going to be on next week talking about it. But she's building a whole thing called the Village, which is basically going to be a place she's building in the forest down in it's going to be one of the first ones she wants to start. It's a world project. And basically just having where anybody from any creative angle can go along, not worry about money, not worry about resources, and just go along there for however they want to go along for. Pull off each other. Basically, what we're doing with what we're doing with our website on actual human form, and it's a
Tim, my bags are packed.
Yeah, I told her already my bags are packed. I'm in Wisconsin with her. I've already told her this. You know what I mean? There's gonna be Max Estes. I'm there. But anyway, she's on next week, and it's the fact she's on next week. So fascinating conversation because it's like I keep saying, this stuff isn't just coming from myself or anybody else. This stuff is going on around the world, and people out there, open your eyes, see what's going on around the world out there, because this stuff is rising, and this connection between human beings is happening, whether you see it on the TV in the mainstream or not. That's all I've got to say. So anyway, like I said, so next week, that's next week's show. We've got lot of other things coming up, but that will I'll let you know in time. I've been on tonight, lads, and thank you a lot for giving me the time, because I know it's a Sunday night, and you could all be watching Downtown or some shit on TV. I get that nice get that black paint out on that eye, and get yourself sat back into yeah. Well, you could be doing that, but anyway, I'm on it, lads. Thanks a lot for coming along. It's been a great chat, and it's I want to have you back sometime as well, because there's so much we haven't. I don't in fact we even tapped into half the things we could talk about. So we'll have to do it another time. So from myself, Tim, and from Ryan.
Very, very cool seeing you guys. Very cool talking to you.
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you finally.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And like I say, we'll just go out and check Fold FM. Make sure it is FM at the end. Like this could be googling Fold. You'll be there for hours. But people go and check them out. Listen to their music. And listen to their music. Don't just put it in your thing. Listen to the words. Educate yourself. Wise yourself up. Understand what's going on in this world. That's enough of my rant. So anyway, from another edition of Life is People, back next Sunday, 7 o'clock. Good night, sayonara. Life is People, people.
Life is People.